lovelies, welcome back to my YouTube channel, and if you're new here, my name is Becky and I post fashion and lifestyle content here on YouTube, and I post every single day over on Instagram, so I would love to see your faces over there too. So today's video is going to be a little different. I feel like I say that a lot, but today's video is actually really different from a lot of my other videos. As you guys may or may not know, it's really important to me to kind of speak up on more taboo topics that are seen as things that shouldn't be talked about. Like I've talked about debt on here, I've talked about periods. Both times I've had people message me and be like, what are you doing? You shouldn't be talking about this online. But here I am. So today's video is going to be a little bit of a bedroom Q&A. I put a question box on my Instagram story yesterday and I asked, what questions do you have about female pleasure? Unfortunately, it's still a really taboo topic to talk about female pleasure and female masturbation and female orgasms. I feel like even in 2020, we're living in a world where everything is very focused on a male perspective, and like sex education is very focused on men's pleasure and periods, and it's like we're still just not living in a place where it is kind of seen equally. I'm going to talk a little bit more about that later, so I'm not going to go into it right now. And I just feel like a lot of girls still feel uncomfortable expressing their sexuality and discussing that even with their friends. So I thought that I would come on here, answer some of your questions, some of the things that maybe you wouldn't dare ask in real life. Okay, so one of the questions that I got a few times, very conveniently actually, was toy recommendations, whether there's any kind of equipment that I would recommend, which I thought was a really interesting way to phrase that question. So that was actually really convenient because today's video is actually sponsored by a company called youre, and they have sent me one of their products, which is the blush. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about that one. So this is a little toy, and it comes with a little pouch, which is very cute because it means you can pop it in the pouch, put it in your drawer, you know it's not going to get like dusty and crusty. So this is the blush. So it is obviously a really diggy little thing, and it fits like really nicely in your hand. It's really like ergonomic. And on the end here, there is a little clitoral stimulator, and it has, I think, like 7 levels of intensity. So you can tailor it to exactly what you want, as intense as you want, or more mild if you want. And let me show you it. So this is the stimulator, and you turn it on at the back here. There we go. That's how loud it is and how kind of vibrating it is, if you can hear that. So this is a clitoral stimulator, like I said, but the whole thing kind of vibrates a little bit, so it is kind of like a vibrator as well. And then you can turn it up, or you can turn it down. So like I said, you can really tailor it to whatever you want. Get to know your body, see what you enjoy, see what works for you. It's waterproof, so you can take it in the shower if you want, if you feel a bit more comfortable trying it out there, kind of figuring out what feels good and what feels right. And also it's rechargeable, so you can just, you can see there it's got like a little charging point. So it's just a USB charger. You can plug it into your laptop, you can plug it into, like, you know, the plug from your phone cable. You don't need to go and buy new batteries all the time, which is really convenient. And yeah, it's just super discreet. It comes in really discreet packaging. You couldn't guess what it is. And then obviously, like I said, it's got this little pouch that you can put it in. So in your drawer, even if somebody looks in your drawer, they're just gonna see this little pouch. Even the box it comes in is super discreet because it just looks like a little perfume box or something, which is really great. So if you are a newbie to toys and you want to try something out, I would definitely recommend this. If you're a newbie to kind of pleasuring yourself, check this out because it's a really great way to kind of learn what feels good for your body, connect to your body a little bit. I do also have a 25% off code, which I'm going to pop in the description box, and that includes free express shipping worldwide. So definitely remember to use the code if you're going to get one and save yourself some money, honey. So let's look at some of the other questions. I've written a bunch down, but then loads more came through on my phone afterwards, so I'm just going to go through the ones on my phone. So the question that how I phrased it on my story was, let's talk about female pleasure. So bear in mind, like, that's kind of the focus on some of the questions. Some of them are just more like bedroom talk oriented, but some of them are very focused on female pleasure specifically. So first question was, do you ever feel oddly disgusted with yourself afterwards? I've heard this. I definitely hear this from a lot of people. So actually, this is something that for a really long time I felt like that, and I wouldn't masturbate because of that. It's probably been more, maybe the last year or so, that I've kind of become more comfortable with myself and felt okay with it. I think that we still live in a society where we're taught that it's normal for boys, but it's a bit weird for girls. And I think that that was really ingrained in my mind, and it took me a really long time to unlearn that and kind of come to terms with my body, come to terms with loving my body and being able to not feel guilty afterwards or not feel gross afterwards. And I do think that masturbation is a really important part of self-care. I think it's a really important part of a healthy sex life. Even if you're in a couple, I think that it's really necessary that you're both doing yourselves separately as well, because it really helps you to learn your own body and know what you enjoy, and that's really crucial in being able to enjoy yourself with your partner. That kind of leads on to a couple of other questions that I got. So one was, why do you think it's still so taboo for women in 2020? I think a lot of it is rooted in misogyny. I think we still somehow in 2020 think that it's okay for men to do certain things, that it would be weird if women can't. Like, if men are assertive, then, you know, they're a leader and they're driven, but when women are assertive, they're bossy and stressy. It's historical. Like, men doing the same things that women do are just viewed differently, and I don't think that's right, and hopefully one day that will be something that changes. But as of right now, that is kind of still how the world works, and I do think that that is why it's still so taboo. And I think a lot of it stems from a really young age, like when we did sex education in school, there was a lot of focus on men and the penis, a lot of focus on, when you would talk about women, it was pregnancy and periods. You only ever really hear people worrying about how to please men. I think it's becoming a little bit more common that people are wondering how to please women, but it's definitely still, you hear about it so much less. You see that so much of the sex industry, like porn and things like that, are targeted at men. And I think just women are often just left out of the conversation because they're just not seen as sexual beings. And I think that we are still, to a degree, told that it's very almost dirty. Sorry, I'm playing with a cap. Things like men who have slept with a lot of people are seen as kind of like a stud or player or bachelor. And then women who may have slept with a lot of people are a slut or whore, and they're just not treated the same way. So yeah, it's definitely a lot to do with the culture, and just, I think, purely the fact that women are still not treated the same as men, and as such it's seen differently. I do believe, as well as us being kind of taught these things when we're really young, a really big factor is purely respect. Like, men's wishes are just respected in a different way to women's are. Men's desires are respected in a different way to women, in that ours just aren't respected in the same way. So many of these questions that I got were about feeling guilty about female pleasure, were about feeling like their partner's very selfish and focused on themselves, feeling like they're left out. and it's just, you hear it commonly. You hear about women faking it, and women, like so many women were asking me in this question sticker, how do I suggest something I want to try to my partner? And yeah, I think toys as well are a really big taboo, because obviously for the reasons we've discussed already, female pleasure, like if you're pleasuring yourself, is seen as really taboo and a bit weird and a bit dirty still. And I think a lot of men feel like if their partners want to introduce toys into their sex life, it's because they're missing something. When I think that really, just, especially if you're in a long-term relationship, a lot of it is just about spicing things up, trying something new. It's not about your partner lacking something, it's about adding something into the mix. Sorry, I'm going off completely on a tangent, just on thoughts that I'm having now. But yeah, I think a lot of the reason that it's so taboo still is just that we're taught that way, and women just don't get the same amount of respect as men, and therefore our wishes are just not respected, our pleasure is not respected the same way, and we just don't get that same kind of consideration. Okay, the next question, because I've just gone off talking about that one for ages. If you're with a partner, do you think that you should tell them if you're masturbating? Personally, I think it's totally up to you. If you want to keep it a private thing that nobody knows about, that's totally cool. I think that some people would be upset if they knew their partner was masturbating, but I don't think that it's something you should be upset about. I think that it's a really healthy part of a healthy sex life to also pleasure yourself separately, and you should be able to have that time to kind of explore your own body, and you should have that time to explore your own body and get to know your own body and know what you enjoy, what feels good to you, and be able to really understand that to be able to have a healthy sex life with another person. I don't think that you can tell another person what feels good to you if you don't know. Sure, you can experiment together, but I think sometimes you can just really get to know your feelings and your body a little bit better by yourself. So I think it's a totally healthy part of a healthy sex life, even if you're in a couple. But in terms of whether you should tell them, it's totally up to you. Personally, I don't think it's anything to be embarrassed about, and I don't think it is something that needs to be kept a secret. But if it's something that you would prefer to keep private, I don't think that you're doing anything wrong if you don't tell them. Next up is, what do you do about selfish partners in bed? I hope this is okay to ask. Listen, girl, because it was a girl who asked. If your partner is being selfish and consistently selfish, like always selfish, not like a one-off, they're consistently showing you that they don't care about your pleasure. Now, I think to a degree that a lot of people, especially men, have learned about sex from porn. So a lot of the time they will do what they've seen in porn, and they might think that that is pleasurable for their partner, even when sometimes it isn't. So I do think it's something that obviously warrants, it depends how forward you are. To me, I would sit them down and say, let's talk, I want to talk to you about something. And I would just say, I'm feeling a bit left out. These are some things that I would like if you could do. And go from there, see how they react. If you feel like that's a little bit too forward, you could try just kind of guiding them, perhaps guiding their hand to where you want them to be, or giving more subtle hints. But then if they don't take the more subtle hints, you are probably going to need to sit down and talk, because it might just be that they don't kind of realize that what they're doing isn't enough. They might not realize they're being selfish. There could also be a specific reason they don't want to do things that they just feel really awkward to bring up, and then if you bring up the topic, they might feel better telling you that. There's so many reasons that they could be selfish that are not selfish, if that makes sense. If you talk to them about it and explain that you're feeling unsatisfied or you're feeling left out, and they don't care or listen to those concerns, run. Get out of there. If they don't care about your pleasure as well, why should you care about theirs? Following on from that, if they don't care about your pleasure and want to make you happy and feel good, it just says something about if they don't want to try and make you feel good and try and do things that will make you feel good, that indicates to me like a deeper problem than sex. Another similar question was the best way to bring up concerns or issues with your partner. Again, I would just be really open and say, there's something I'd like to talk to you about. Do it in a calm setting, on a calm day. Don't bring it up in an argument, because then it's just going to feel aggressive. But if you bring it up in a really calm manner, at a calm time, I think that any kind of healthy partner who you're in a healthy relationship with, so I'm gonna cross my legs and get all comfy now, then they're gonna want to respect that you're feeling worried. Okay, they will have, you know, respect for the fact that you're feeling worried, and they'll want to ease those worries and make you feel better. And I think you would be shocked at how comfortable some of these conversations can be. Personally, I've previously had some struggles from previous trauma, and I was terrified at the idea of discussing those with my partner. But when I did, it was like it unlocked a whole new like lease of life on our relationship, because these like fears and feelings that I was struggling with, once I shared them, he knew not to do certain things, or he knew to be a little bit more gentle with me. And like it can be an awkward conversation, but once you've had it, it's so entirely worth it. So definitely it's so important to raise these fears and any worries, and just be really open. And I think in all parts of your relationship, it's really important to be really open. If your partner is worth it, then they're gonna try and make you feel better, and they're gonna want to work on it, and they're not gonna be angry about it. Another question that kind of leads on from that one is, a girl asked, she said that she's bisexual and she's never slept with a woman, and she's asked, how is heterosexual sex and homosexual sex different? There's a few things to unpack here. I think a big fear for a lot of bisexual women, particularly, I can't speak on men that like men, but for a lot of women who like women, I think a big fear is that we've kind of been raised in a world where we know what to expect when we were going to have sex with somebody with a penis, but when you're going to have sex with somebody with a vagina, you just don't know. Like, we just don't, it's not really discussed, it's not in media, it's not in your sex education classes. So I think a big fear is not knowing what to do, kind of thing. A lot of it is in your head, and in the moment I think it comes quite naturally. And again, if you're with a partner that you trust and you feel comfortable with, you can kind of explore that together in a natural way, and it's really not as scary as it seems. It's really not. And then obviously, aside from the sexual aspect, there is also like the femininity of two women together. I guess not all women are feminine, but you see what I mean, like they're two women together, it's a different dynamic. But honestly, it's not as different and it's not as scary as you would expect. Do you know what? I've dated women and I've dated men, and I always expected that women would be more attentive and more considerate and kind. It just ain't always the case. I've dated women who were horribly inconsiderate, made me feel like absolute crap, and comparing that to my current partner, who is incredibly considerate and he's very kind, and it's a lot more to do with the individual, the differences really. I think one big difference maybe between like homosex versus heterosex is that I think with heterosex there's a lot of, you kind of know what to expect because it's ingrained in you from basically the moment you're old enough to see it, and you've probably seen it everywhere before that anyway. You're taught about heterosex, you see it in the media, you see it all sorts of places. There's kind of, you know what to expect. But then with a lot of, in my experience, homosexual sex, there is not so much the same kind of blueprint for it. So because you don't so much know exactly what to expect and you're more just kind of like enjoying each other and figuring it out, it can be, I wouldn't say more adventurous, but I think it's more perhaps experimental and more figuring out what works rather than doing what you should kind of thing. And I do think that like using toys seems to be a lot more normalized in homosexual relationships, and I think that's because heterosexual relationships are often seen as the norm. You don't need toys. Like I said earlier, I don't think that toys are about a need. It's not about something that's missing in a relationship or in a sex life. It's more adding something in. But again, I think that because a lot of homosexual people are kind of taught that they're already different and that their relationship is already different, people are a little less afraid to perhaps experiment a bit more and introduce things in a little bit more. Yeah, so I think that because kind of a lot of people, sorry, Winter is going crazy playing tug over there, so you'll have to ignore that. I think because a lot of people in homosexual relationships are already taught that they're different, it kind of breaks down some of those barriers. So I think, yeah, I don't know, that's been my experience in homosexual versus heterosexual relationships and sexual relationships. Okay, I think that's probably enough questions for today because I have been talking for like an hour, and if there's not enough footage there, I don't know what to do. Basically, I think the long of the short of it is the messaging that I want you guys to take from this is it's okay to enjoy your own body. It's okay to enjoy your own body for you and not for anybody else, not in anybody else's like idea of what is appropriate or what is okay. Like, your body is for you. If you do want to use a toy for that and you do have a vagina, then check out the blush, and I promise you will not be disappointed. Can't recommend anything for people with penises because I don't know. But yeah, a lot of these questions seemed like almost like people were like afraid to talk to their partners. Don't be afraid to, oh my god, Winter is like making such a racket chewing this water bottle. Can you not? Can you not? Ow! I'm gonna go because Winter is going crazy now. Love yourselves, enjoy yourselves, stay safe, practice safe sex, and I will see you all next time. Bye.